They show us that the hero's life could not have been better. They worked for him, played sports, and much more. But at some point a huge dragon appears, which spreads almost the entire city. Now everything will be different, after we see that the guy is already in armor and gives an order to a group of people so that they take care of the corpses. A giant monster appears in front of him again, ready to tear him to shreds, but he does not realize that in fact, he is not alone. And the reason for this is simple: he has the skill of cloning. The monster is dying. It begins with the hero's monologue. He rants that there are many things that he should do, but no less than those that he wants to do. It's something simple, like playing games or traveling. That's just the person managed to do only one thing at a time, so the guy wanted a second body. And well, he got it. They show us a chubby student, Young Sang-woo, who dreamed of the same: I stare at other people. We are also introduced to the A-class hunter, Pak-won, who says that he will be responsible for the 10th Portal Awakening program. This is a program launched by the government to help awaken the ability. Therefore, people are forced to cross the portal. They will be starting right now, so I'm sorry to go through the first group ahead. Soon it's the student's turn, group 37, number 7. The girl checks his identity using a special bracelet, asks him to give her all the devices, and then allows him to enter the portal. But as soon as the palm touches the unknown matter, it is worth going through another authentication, as the world blurs before your eyes. Yoon Sang-woo wakes up in some kind of bunker, not feeling very well. There are also other people here who seem to be trying to test their abilities, and if it is powerful enough, they immediately begin to beg him to join this or that guild. He is also approached by a man who asks him about his ability. The student immediately tries to check before an electronic scoreboard with characteristics and skills appears in front of him. Cloning, who would doubt? When he informs an unknown person of his ability, he does not look particularly optimistic. I tell him about a person who had illusory cloning, but since the copies did not have a physical shell, they could not do anything. The man also says that officials who are further away will be able to evaluate his skill. The guy wants to get out as soon as possible, so he goes through the final scan and registration before returning through the portal. The DNA gene is now displayed on the bracelet. He comes home, where he immediately sits down at the computer, but then falls on the bed, thinking that he needs to pay for rent and study, and how wonderful it would be if someone worked for him. That's why the youngster jumps up and decides to test his skill. Young Sang-woo shouts clone summon, and as if by magic, a blue glow envelops him, which soon appears in front of him in the form of his second copy, only naked. The guy looks at his clone dumbfounded, and then asks if it is possible to touch him, to which he receives consent and the title of master. It's kind of awkward, but the copy's body is completely physical and resembles his own. The student decides to dress him somehow before asking how to give orders correctly. It turns out that you don't even need to talk, because even from one thought, the clone immediately does what he is told. He tells him to get up, then sit down, which makes the clone out of breath since they have the same characteristics, before the original himself feels the vibration of the phone. Jendo informs him that he has as many as 2 hunter skills, but the hero himself is not going to communicate his ability. The clone, continuing to repeat the instructions, unexpectedly increases endurance by 0.001. Then they show us the jumper, George Lucas, the owner of the skill of flickering with the rank of S in America, part-time leader of the Enlightenment group, the first person to pass Odin's Tower. In this very building of enlightenment, George is informed that 80% of the population of 300 million people are now awakened, and only after 5 years they will reach the 100 mark. Until that moment, we are shown the already shouldn't of Shigo Young Sang-woo, who is still running. Many people notice him not for the first time, and one woman even offers him a bottle of water so that he does not faint, but the guy immediately runs away further. It's a clone. The original has been feeling hungry lately and usually eats for 2, but still lost enough kilograms. He doesn't do anything, and his body is getting better day by day, as are the characteristics. Also during this time, he managed to find out that the pain of copies is not transmitted. The clone simply disappears as soon as it reaches its limit or gets damaged. With each change it simply copies the appearance, and still cannot create its own kind. After that, we are shown a small flashback with a chubby hero who decides to find out what the skills and characteristics of wiki hunters are. A characteristic per unit is the limit for an unawakened adult. They can be special or ordinary, but the latter are most common, and it can be very difficult to lift them. And maybe if he had moved with the clone, the desired result would have been achieved even earlier. But Young Sang-woo just spits on it, deciding that the copy will be the limbs, and he will be the head. The main character understands that he does not have enough money to register, which means that he needs to find a job, but some kind of construction, so that the clone can continue to move, but at the same time he can earn. But he doesn't know anything about it himself, which means a copy too, so you have to try it yourself first. Fortunately, he comes across the questionnaire of the logistics center where the work is tied to delivery. The guy decides to dial a number where they tell him that there will be no preliminary interview and he can immediately start working as soon as he gets the opportunity. At first, the student is going to come tomorrow, but the employer offers to start him right now. He comes to the place with a clone, to whom he explains how to behave and what to do, even gives the name Jendo. But then Mr. Dokchil catches their eye, a middle-aged man with whom they are familiar. Young Sang-woo is lying about coming with a friend to work part-time, and a friend is so friendly to him pointing out where the office is located. Already during work, the student is blown away, unable to lift so many weights, but the clone absolutely does not care. The original shouldn't have come. After a while, they are given a break for an hour, at which they meet Mr. Dokchil again, offering both a can of Pepsi. He tells them that the guys have done a good job before the conversation flows smoothly to study. The man wants to give his daughter to the same place where the brunette is studying now, but she herself, of course, does not aspire at all. It turns out that you can get some special permission for admission. But instead, Dokchil asks a friend to work out with his daughter for money, 50,000 won for 2 hours, a couple of times a week. It doesn't sound so bad, so he readily agrees. We are shown the morning of the next day. Number 1, the clone, still continues to work, raising the characteristic, but soon the original asks him to return while he is having breakfast. The copy washes, changes clothes, and then Jeong Sang-woo asks to extend his hand in order to pierce someone else's phalanx with a needle. In fact, it was in order to gain the ability to regenerate, but so far without success. The student leaves number 1 unattended, giving instructions that he should eat whenever he felt hungry and answer calls. The guy himself is heading towards the gym, but on the way he runs into Kim Jong-do, who texted him in every possible way as soon as he got the skill. They head to the gym together while a friend tells about the beauty of the coach. Already at the reception, the student agrees on a subscription for 3 months in advance, and the man who registered him shows how to use various simulators correctly before they hear some kind of scream. A bulky man was lifting a heavy barbell, but after he finds out that the skill itself gave him an increase in strength, Kim did not sign up with him because there was no cute coach. Then Dokchil calls the guy and arranges for today's meeting in order to discuss tutoring again, so he immediately goes to the man's home. It's noisy outside the door. The daughter is clearly not very happy with the arrival of an uninvited guest, and the father convinces her that he is going to work. But unfortunately, when he opens the door, he accidentally knocks Chan down. The girl herself is shocked by such an unexpected appearance. The guy is seated at the table and given something cold in order to reduce the focus of inflammation. Miss Hyun, the girl with whom he will be studying, even blushed, unable to look up at her tutor. The student also asks for her report card, but the scores leave much to be desired. Dokchil, clearly pleased, runs off to work so as not to interfere, while the hero himself supports Haeyeon, saying that everything was not always rosy for him either and he had to cram a lot. They decide to start work, during which it turns out that the high school student is not so hopeless. Already at home, the guy relaxes, realizing that number 1 has gone to work. He visits the Hunter's website, where many even sell their own skills for impressive prices. I wonder how much these hunters earn themselves, then. It turns out that there are quite a lot, so Sang-woo decides to try himself in this. In 2000, at the same time, portals began to open all over the earth, from which monsters climbed. Because of this incident, which was later called the Great Catastrophe, more than half of the population died. And it seemed that this was the end of humanity. But along with this, people with special abilities began to appear. And thanks to them, we managed to win a brutal victory. And now, already in 2023, there was a profession for hunting the remaining monsters. You need to take a test in order to get permission to legally kill monsters. That's why the guy goes to a special center where they sell weapons and much more. Registration for the exam will end in 20 minutes. Soon he finds himself in the office itself, which is full of people, and the examiner is Han Myung H1, a C-class hunter. He says that the exam consists of several parts: a written test, a practical test, and an aptitude test. If they get caught with cheat sheets, they will be able to retake it only next year. We are shown the driver of Kon, who is the executive director of the JM agency. For some reason, he also keeps track of the time when the exam ends. Meanwhile, the hero has already received a license and has become a Class F hunter. The test turned out to be very easy. At the second stage they gave a lot of time to prepare, and the targets were hung very close. The aptitude test turned out to be a conversation about morality from school at all. It's all too easy. After leaving the building, he notices that guild officials are crowding around, who are eager to recruit new hunters. San-woo is also not bypassed. The same director Kang approaches him, who offers his agency for a more profitable purchase of weapons and other things. That's just the man he abruptly ceases to be interested in when he flashes a window with a notification. The cloning skill is increased. He immediately rushes home. Number 2 immediately appears in the apartment. After that, there is a narrative on behalf of the director again. He is in the official government of Korea's leading guild, Hisong. He only needs to settle the amount written in the document. Junno notices that the prices are somehow too low, to which he is told that it is worth talking less. Already in the car, Yoon Sang-woo calls him, offering to meet for further discussion. The man, of course, is skeptical about his skill. That's why he gives the easiest contract. The director recommends him a territory for slug hunting, where he will have to wear a mask and a special suit in order not to die from poisonous gases. The second territory is hunting horned hares, but you won't earn much there. The guy chooses both, which Kang does not understand at first. But when another copy appears in front of him, everything falls into place. We see another meeting of Khan with a man who also had cloning, but all copies are just illusions that cannot cause physical harm. That is why such potential as real clones even surprises the director. He sees a huge potential in this guy and is even ready to talk to someone, so that there will be no questions if the same person enters 2 territories. They agree to meet in 2 days in order to scan the bracelet and test the skills in action. The contract was concluded. After 2 days, they meet near the building of the Hunter's Center. He has to stand in line again in order to request documents for dual access to territories. The case, of course, is not typical, especially since only one other person did something similar, a jumper. Kang decides to sort out the paperwork while Yoon Sang-woo headed to the showroom. Soon he is given a more pumped-up bracelet, and clones could enter and exit by fingerprint. They meet again, and the student decides to immediately go to the hunting area, while the head of the Hessen Guild, Shin Hessen, is watching their conversation with the director from above. The same Shin calls out to Kang before jumping down to them from the top floor. There is clearly a difficult relationship between them. The head mocks his employee and student, who does not look like a hunter at all, and even though the boy finds something to answer the man, he turns up behind him in a second, clearly intending to test his skills, but that's bad luck. Soon some employee runs up, who drags the boss away. Already in the car, Junno thanks a new acquaintance for a little humiliation about the tire. A very trusting relationship begins to develop between them on the grounds that Chong is the only one who went to his agency after the case leaked on the internet that Kang was kicked out of the guild. While clone number 1 is swinging in the gym, the guy with the second one is already engaged in slug hunting with might and main. We need to pick up the first copy so that he can get into the second territory. They finally pick up the first one from the gym with Kang. They discuss hunting horned rabbits and weapons that can be rented or purchased of their own. They come to the territory of Eugensen. This is where the monsters broke through, which is why there are so many military equipment and people here. Usually monsters do not pass through the portal and have to fight inside it, but sometimes they still manage to cross the barrier. And there are only level F and E monsters inside right now. The rented gun goes for 700,000 won, but Junno says it will all pay off later. They come to the right place, where many are already starting to shoot rabbits. The hunt begins. Unfortunately, the hero didn't hit any of them. He leaves his clone, asking him to write the number 1 if he catches a rabbit, and let him call if he runs out of ammo. The guy is already going home, where he considers his characteristic skills continue to grow. He falls asleep while 46 SMS messages with the number 1 have already arrived on the phone.